Hello everybody. Today I'm driving out to a place called Marsham Heath in Norfolk, and I'm going to spend some time in the woods to celebrate the International Day of Forests. Well, here I am. I've arrived for my walk. Marsham Heath is a place of special scientific interest. That means scientists are really interested in the wildlife and the plants and trees that live here. It's a beautiful area with lots of different types of trees, which makes it the perfect place to celebrate the International Day of Forests. Marsham Heath is just near the village of Marsham and not too far away from the town of Aylsham. If you look at a map of Norfolk, you should be able to find those places and see where I am today. And into the woods I go. International Day of Forests is on the 21st of March, and it was created by the United Nations, which is a big group of countries, and Great Britain is one of those, so we're celebrating it today. The United Nations created the International Day of Forests to celebrate all of the wonderful forests all over the world and remember how important woods are for us as humans. We get food and water from forests, we get building materials from forests, we get medicine from forests. And forests mean that we have somewhere wonderful to come and play and walk and do forest school. That's worth celebrating. The 21st of March is the perfect time to celebrate our forests because it's just at the start of the spring when the birds are singing and the sun is shining and the wildlife is moving all around and the trees are coming to life after sleeping through the winter. Now you probably know that trees give us the oxygen that we breathe, and they do loads of other amazing things too, like taking toxic chemicals out of the atmosphere. And that's why we have the International Day of Forests, because it helps us remember that we need to protect these amazing woods. Because if we save the forests and if we protect the forests, they're going to protect us. I've come to a little spot right in the middle of the woods, a really quiet place. And I'm going to do something called a sit spot, where I'm going to sit down at the bottom of this tree and I'm just going to have a good look around. And I'm going to do this for about 15 minutes. I'm going to see what I can see, I'm going to see what I can smell, and I'm going to see what I can hear. And if I'm very still, and if I'm very lucky, I might see some wildlife. I might see some squirrels, I might see some rabbits, I might see some deer, I might see birds, I might see insects. But if I don't see any of those things, I hopefully will see some smaller details around the forest that I haven't noticed before. Because in this wood, there is so much going on. And by sitting and having a look at everything, I might be able to notice some of those things. Let's go. I've just finished my 15-minute sit spot. And while I was sitting, I noticed lots of insects and spider webs all around that I hadn't spotted before I sat down. And I could see the trees moving in the distance and see how they banged into each other sometimes in the wind, making this noise. And I enjoyed listening to the birds in the distance and the crunch of the leaves as they blow around. And I notice that I'm feeling very calm now and very relaxed. Because as I sat in the woods, I felt very present and amongst the trees and I really noticed everything that was happening, and I was very mindful of being in the woods, and it helped me forget about all the things that are going on in my brain and maybe worrying me. So that was really nice. Let's have a closer look at all the places that are here in this little spot in the woods. And we're going to start down here on the forest floor. So here we are on the forest floor. If we have a quick look at the forest floor with our eyes, then we notice lots of crunchy leaves. These are last year's leaves. And this year's leaves are currently growing at the top of the tree, ready to soak up the summer sun. And in the autumn, they will fall and become like these leaves. If we have a really close look, we can notice lots of other things down here as well. Here I've got some sweet chestnut shells. Sweet chestnut shells fall from the top of the sweet chestnut tree. And they're brilliant food for squirrels and for humans. This one's been eaten already. If these don't get eaten, then they go into the ground and they grow into new sweet chestnut trees. I found some sticks. There's sticks everywhere here. Sticks are great. We can play with sticks, we can burn sticks on a fire, and we can build things with sticks. And they're all around when we have a closer look. But the coolest thing I noticed by having a close look is this piece of really rotten wood. Rotting wood is a really important part of our forest because it gives the mushrooms and the fungi somewhere to grow and something to eat, and it gives shelter for insects. And I think if I lift up this piece of rotting wood, I'm going to see a hidden world filled with creepy crawlies. Here we go. Any creepy crawlies? There's a little spider. There he goes. As I lift this up, I can see a tiny snail. And here is some kind of larvae. Now a larvae is normally a baby version of a flying insect like a moth. But I'm not sure what this one is. But it's very cool and it's completely hidden. Here's another hidden world underneath this piece of bark. We've got two woodlice, a centipede, and a leopard slug. And there's another leopard slug. They're very camouflaged against the bark. We can hardly see them. And they're hiding under here. It's very important that when I have a look at these hidden worlds on the forest floor, I put them back when I'm done. Because it's a bit like ripping the roof off somebody's house. It's really important that I put it back on before I go, so those insects still have somewhere safe to live. Let's have a look at the next layer up now. So, we've had a look at the floor. Now let's have a look at what's a bit higher than the floor. In your woods, it might be bushes and things, but here, there aren't any bushes, so the next layer up is the trees. Do you remember we found that little prickly sweet chestnut earlier? This is the tree it came from. This is a sweet chestnut tree. They can live for a very long time, and the wood is very hard. They're very common in Britain. Here's a tree Mr. Sippett's talked about before. It's the holly. Holly leaves are spiky to stop animals eating them. They must be quite delicious for animals. This next tree is fantastic, and it's a really good one to learn if you want to learn more about trees, because it's got white bark, so it's really noticeable in a woodland. It's called a silver birch tree, and these trees are fantastic for a forest. They're often the first trees to grow because they can survive in some really difficult soil, and by growing they help other trees grow all around them. This tree's good for us too, because the bark is great for lighting fires, and if you've had a fire with me and Mr. Sippett before, you'll know this. Something else cool on this tree too. Fungus. Here. This fungus is called amadou. Lots of different fungi grow on silver birch trees. They're really fantastic. Around me here on the tree level, there's all different kinds of trees, and that means that there's all different kinds of bark. This bark is smooth, but this bark is very rough. It's nice to touch all the different trees and feel all the different textures and get to know them a bit better. Hello tree, my name's Mr. Brownlie. Thanks for being here in this forest so that I can come and have a walk and explore. Now we can put trees into two different groups. There are coniferous trees and deciduous trees. Deciduous trees lose their leaves in winter, but coniferous trees have their leaves all year round, and normally their leaves are very, very thin and we call them needles. Here is a very special place because on this side we've got deciduous trees which don't have any leaves because it's still just about the winter. But behind me, in here, we've got pine trees which are coniferous and they have needles. We've got one more place to have a look. So we've looked down at the forest floor, we've looked up at the trees around, and now we're going to look right up at the treetops, see what we can see. I don't know if you can see it, but up in the top of this tree, there is two little birds jumping from branch to branch. And over here, I can see a bird's nest. That must be a place where a bird lives and lays its eggs. Well then everybody, that is the end of my day in the woods to celebrate the International Day of Forests 2022. It's really magical to spend time in the woods and to have a close look at all the things that are going on. There's so much happening here all the time, and it's not until you stop and look all around that you notice some of those things. This week, you can celebrate the International Day of Forests too, by spending some time in the woods. You could go and find a spot where your favourite tree is, or where your den is, or maybe just a place that you think would be pretty cool to have a closer look at. You could do a sit spot for a few minutes and see what you can see and hear and smell, and then you could have a closer look at all the layers of the woodland and see what treasures there are to be found and what amazing things are happening. The most important thing of all this International Day of Forests is to be grateful for the forests all around, because without them we wouldn't have oxygen to breathe or the things that we need to survive, and neither would all the other amazing animals that live here. We all need to do what we can to protect the amazing woods and forests that we have in this country and in the world. I'm grateful, and I'm going to thank a tree now. Thank you, lovely oak tree. See you again sometime. Bye, everyone.